Is the Bible trustworthy? Yes, we know the Bible is trustworthy because it was inspired by God. But more importantly for skeptics, we know it's true because it was passed down to us over many centuries with virtually no errors from the original handwritten documents. See, back then people wrote on either stone, parchment, which is animal skin, or papyrus, which is comprised of interwoven strips of leaves from a certain type of plant. From then on, any ancient culture would then write out copies of original works in order to pass them down to the next generation. Then the next generation did the same thing because the material was so easily perishable. So, copies of copies of copies over many centuries was the norm. One of the ways modern scholars and archaeologists evaluate any ancient text, not just the Bible, is to see if the more modern copies say essentially the same thing as the more ancient copies. If they do, then they're deemed more reliable and authentic to the original. With any ancient text, small errors will occur in this copying process. And the Bible is no different. But when errors or mismatches between the copies of the Bible we still possess actually do occur, they have all been insignificant and none pertain to any essential Christian doctrine. Another method modern scholars use to determine the authenticity of a text is to look at the age and the amount of ancient copies we still have. The more ancient copies we still have, the more reliable they are. For example, we have about 5,600 Greek copies of various portions of the New Testament, and our earliest copy is from part of the Bible known as John, the book of John, and it dates back to 125 AD, which is about 29 years, only 29 years after John is said to have written the original. By comparison, the next oldest ancient writing is Homer's Iliad, which we only have about 600 Greek copies, and the oldest copy we still have has been dated 500 years after Homer was said to have written the original. So, 500 years compared to 29 years. 5,000 copies compared to 600 copies. John is deemed much more reliable, just that copy of John, but we have many other ancient New Testament texts just like that. That's the point here. And when it comes to Aristotle, we only have 49 copies, and the oldest one dates 1,400 years after the original. So if you disregard the New Testament, then you literally have to disregard many other ancient writings like Plato's writings and Aristotle's and Homer's, because the New Testament documents are better preserved and exponentially more numerous than any other ancient writing. And because we still have so many copies, they can be cross-checked for accuracy. The bottom line is the same way we evaluate other ancient documents such as Homer's Iliad or the works of Plato and Aristotle is the same way the Bible has been evaluated. And based on that criterion alone, over and over again, the Bible has been deemed exponentially more reliable and true to the original text than any other ancient text in all of history.